It's the 21st century, and yet people are fleeing their homes at a rate not seen since World War II. More than 65 million people have been forced into a life of uncertainty. More than 10 million people left stateless. Today, the number of displaced people in the world has never been higher. Someone is driven from their home every 3 seconds. In recent years, much media attention has been focused on Europe's borders, but the majority of displaced people live in the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa. In this episode, I'll be visiting Kenya, home to some of the largest refugee camps in the world, and finding out that beyond the headlines lies a wealth of human talent.
Many people are refugees of their own emotion, of their own physical problems. I take being a refugee as a natural calamity.
When they hear the name refugees, they think in negative perspective. They are poor, they are people who cannot do things.
I'll meet 3 artists living as refugees to find out how they've been affected by their experiences. How do you pursue your dreams when you've lost everything?
There are people who used to go to school, who used to be doctors, who used to be artists, and they would still love to do that. So instead of us just locking them in a camp, like, you guys sit here and all we do is feed you, they want to work.
Refugee camps are societies, refugee camps are community, and I would say art is as important as food, as important as healthcare, as important as education.
I'll speak to those changing the narrative and succeeding despite the odds.
If you say you're a refugee, there's a default reaction of people thinking you're a criminal or you're a terrorist.
The artists I'll meet on my journey have been through incredible challenges.
So when they stop the car, you know your life has ended, because either they kill you or they shoot you or you escape.
All the people I'll meet have something in common. They're using their talent to define their own story and make us all rethink what it means to be a refugee. More than 1 in 20 people living in the Middle East are displaced. Sub-Saharan Africa hosts more than 26% of the world's refugee population. That's over 18 million people. Between 2000 and 2017, Africa experienced the largest relative increase in the number of international migrants, up 68%.
Town. Pizza the king and you know it.
I'm in Kenya to see what the crisis looks like to those at its centre. People here are fleeing violence and instability in Somalia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan. That's where Stephen Koat is from. At just 16 years old, Stephen is already a feature on the Kenyan hip-hop scene. He's appeared on the album of one of Kenya's most famous musicians, but his day-to-day life as a refugee couldn't be further from the hip-hop highlights. Stephen and his family had to flee South Sudan's violent war in 2012. For the last 6 years, he's been living in Kakuma refugee camp, which is home to around 165,000 people. The word Kakuma means nowhere in Swahili, a place they call the invisible city, a place that shouldn't exist. The camp is overstretched and living here is hard. There's little chance of getting a job, and even getting food is a daily challenge. Many have lived here for decades, trapped in a cycle of survival.
If you go to top, you'll get people fighting because of water. And then in Russian, you'll see the Kenyan beating people because there's no food, there's not enough food there.
But Stephen's musical talent could be his ticket out. 3 years ago, Stephen was spotted at a talent competition by one of Kenya's biggest hip-hop artists, Octopizzo.
He was just a kid who had like a lot of energy. Then 2 years later, I met him as a rapper now. You know, he had his own crew. He started a group of 4 people, him and his brother and 2 other guys, and they called themselves Street Boys. And they used to be street children in South Sudan. After the war broke, they lived in the street. And then when they came to the camp, they found each other and they owned that life and say, we call it Street Boys.
It was an encounter that would change his life forever and enabled Stephen to get a permit to leave the refugee camp, allowing him to work on his music in recording studios and to perform at concerts.
I've just arrived at the studio to catch up with Koat, aka SKG by his stage name, who's here to get some help from Octopizzo with a few of his new tracks. What's the song that you recorded about?
I've recorded about a song, My Name, meaning that at that time people, they thought that I'm not good in music, and I'm telling them now, you will know my name.
What's the dream?
My dream is to be a superstar, to be known all over the world.
You get up on stage in front of crowds of hundreds, if not thousands of people. Where do you find the courage to do that?
If I get in the stage, I feel free. And that is the time that I forgot all my problems. Life in Kakuma is very difficult. You know, now in school, there's no good education because people are very many. And in hospital, if you go to hospital, you'll not get a good medicine.
Koat is understandably concerned about the future he faces in a refugee camp. He's one of over 500,000 refugees here in Kenya, and globally, over 50% of refugees are children. But for those who manage to make it out of the camps, the future can seem a lot brighter.
Koat is a great pride for us, and this is what we talk about. He's clearly somebody with a huge talent, find himself in a refugee camp, and we must make sure that he will be able to realize his potential.
Easy crisis, season a cry still, malnutrition, kids daily wanna die meals.
Refugenius is the name of Octopizzo's latest album. But it's also an attitude. The hip-hop star brought together refugee artists from across Africa to collaborate on the album and challenge the status quo. Auditions were held at refugee camps all over the continent to find the very best talent.
We are really strict when we do the auditions on the songs. We're really strict because we tell these artists, we are not here to do favors. We are not here to feel pity that, hey, you're a refugee, I'm just here to help you. No, you're a human being and you're gonna compete with normal people. So your song has to be competing with my song, has to be competing with Rihanna's song.
It's been a local and regional hit.
From the YouTube views, they've got more views than some of our own Kenyan artists, you know, so that is huge.
It's been 20 years in the refugee camp. It's not a crisis anymore, bro. Africa's bleeding.
So I met Eric last year in our training for urban refugees, and what I realized is one of the refugees with a big heart. And I always tell people, you don't need to wait to be famous, you don't need to wait to be rich to do something.
Eric Museveni is a professional drummer. He was forced from his home in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now he's one of 60,000 refugees living in Nairobi. More than 60% of the world's refugees live in cities, not camps, each of them hoping for the chance of a more normal life. But it also comes with risks and the constant struggle to survive.
I arrived here in Nairobi, I didn't know anybody. Then their life was sort of, I started with the construction. The time we were not constructing, I used to go in town looking if I can get some connection where I can play. After a few time, I get a church in town where I used to pray in drums, because I'm a drumist by passion and by profession.
Like many refugees in this city, Eric struggled to find work. After being turned down for countless loans, he used his earnings from the Refugenius album and set up his own music academy, a move that turned out to be his lifeline. He's invited me to his academy, where he teaches young people the skills they need to become professional musicians. The Bortopa Talanta Academy has grown from its humble beginnings in Eric's one-room apartment. It now fills this Nairobi community centre with music and hope.
I started the academy with a drum set and one student. After that, I had 3 students. Then this year, the refugees could not get money to pay for school fees for their trainings, because most of them, they don't go to school.
Using wages from his job as a drummer in a church, Eric offers scholarships to 90% of his students.
I do help anybody who I see he needs an assistance. More than refugees, it was another case because they're my fellow people.
What I find particularly inspiring about Eric's story is that despite arriving here just a year ago as a refugee himself, he's since gone on to set up not just 1, but 2 academies to help other refugees build a sustainable future using their musical talents.
In 2015, Eric was on a bus in his native Congo when it was targeted by gunmen.
I left DRC because of the wars. Actually, my tribe have lived there for many years, but the years of treating badly, killing, actually we don't live freely. We don't have peace there. They stopped our car. They started threatening us, like showing that we are seeing death in the eyes. Then we were 7. Then me with another guy, we were like youth, we have strength, we managed to run. But what we came to know is that the other 5 have been killed.
If somebody has killed your mom or raped your mom, you don't want to sing about peace. So I remember the first time I did audition and people were singing about guns and going home and shooting people. And you know, for the UN, that was too sensitive, it's too hardcore. And I told them, you have to let them sing those stuff, or else they'll go do it for real.
People will tell you art is not a life-threatening need, or lack of art is not necessarily something that is life-threatening. If you don't have artists expressing themselves, the society can manage. What we believe is that the society cannot manage if art is not there to express the feelings and beliefs of people.
Nairobi is home to tens of thousands of refugees, each of them trying to carve out a new life, one that isn't defined by their past. Among them is Flora Fresgi Miskin. At just 12 years old, she fled Eritrea with her mother to escape military conscription.
At a certain age or after high school, you have to train as a soldier. Most of the time, people never come back out of it.
Having narrowly escaped the draft, she's forged a career in the arts. She paints mandalas, a symbol that represents the universe and balance.
Mandala art is used by the Buddhists, and the Chinese as well. They would make a big one of it, and at the end of it burn it, because they're very spiritual people, and they normally put all their spirits in it and on all their emotions. So they end up burning beautiful stuff, which is sad, but at the same time makes sense.
It's almost art as therapy, really, isn't it?
I never have a plan of what color I should use next or anything. I feel like it's my emotions letting me know what I should use in the next rhythm or the next movement that I should use.
In addition to her mandala art, Flora has been working with one of Kenya's leading political cartoonists on a comic book authored entirely by refugee artists. The aim is to use comics to give refugees a voice, as well as to help them earn a living.
And can you tell me about the particular comics that you drew for the book?
It's called Betrayal of My Soul. It's of a girl who grew up without a father. And this time came when a family friend, who was a man, of course, they became close with the young girl. And he made her feel like there was a gap in her life that was never filled, which was a father figure in her life. And he would treat her like a father, and they would do a lot of things. But at the end of the day, things didn't turn out as she always, dreamt of. He ended up doing the opposite, which was defiling her.
How has working on that comic helped you deal with that experience?
I felt like it wasn't even about me at that moment. It was about the rest of the people who have gone through such things. Because sometimes when you realize you're not the only person, you feel like you need to reach out to those people and make them feel good.
How did you feel when you walked through the gallery here and saw your work on exhibition?
It was amazing. And for people to come and appreciate, and I made my sales for the first time. I sold 3 pieces, and I was like, it's a new art here in Kenya most of the time, and it was an amazing thing for people to like, oh, who did this, it's her. You feel good, yeah.
Art is a crucial function of any society, and whether we support or not, it exists. The reality is that if you go to a refugee camp anywhere around the world, you will find talented artists.
The word refugeenias came from the word refugee, and the word refugee has been really negative. But we wanted them to own the word. You never run from the word. Like, people hide. Even here, when you say you're from Kibera, it's like you're a problem. So we changed this place to Chocolate City. So now we say, I'm from Chocolate City, because when you look at the iron sheet, it's all chocolate. And when it rains, we walk on chocolate. So with this place now, we call it Chocolate City. We own it.
Chocolate City, or Kibera, is home to around 250,000 people, making it the biggest city slum in Africa. The sprawling district was once a forest, but for the past 100 years, generations of refugees have found shelter here.
The majority of people here live on less than $1 a day. It's where Octo Pizzo grew up, and he says that's given him a particular insight into the experience of refugees.
The first people who came here, they came here as refugees. They are called Nubians. They are not from here. They came from South Sudan, and they are the majority here. And then the other Kenyans who now came to the city to look for jobs and couldn't get the good jobs also started hiding, and then it just became a community. So here, personally, I personally feel like they're refuging from something.
Over half of the world's refugees now live in the slums of some of the world's biggest cities. Here they battle poverty and insecurity.
Charity is one way, is that I have and you don't have. Like, I don't believe in that. I believe in giving back because I've experienced and understand what sleeping hungry is, understand what not having a shoe is, understand what not being able, to even know that you'll see the next day is. That's the reason I'll take my shoe and give it to a refugee, because I've been there. Not because I have, because I've been there.
With nowhere to escape to, countless refugees around the world have lost their freedom simply because of their circumstances. Here in Kenya, the government imposes restrictions on the free movement of refugees, something Octopizzo has campaigned to change.
You know, you could live in a bungalow or in a condo, but if you're locked there, you don't have freedom, it's useless. And for me, that's the only thing that now differentiates us from the refugees in the camp, because they don't have freedom. They have curfews. We don't have curfews here. It's a free man's land.
Stephen Koat knows all about this. Each time he wants to leave his home in Kakuma refugee camp, he has to obtain special permission from the Kenyan government, and that's really hard to come by. Without it, he risks jail time or a fine.
These are all your family members?
Yeah.
And what is this exactly?
It's manifest.
What is a manifest?
Manifest is showing that your family and the way you came from.
The manifest that Stephen showed me is his passport in and out of the camp. But despite freedom of movement being enshrined in international law, aid agencies have warned of increasing restrictions on refugees. As soon as the concert is over, Stephen must make his way straight back to Kakuma. But before he took to the stage, he wanted to show me some pictures he'd drawn of his favourite rappers.
So what is it about these rappers that you admire? What do you look up to in them?
His flow and what he's singing about.
And do you learn from listening to them how to do your flows?
Yeah, because sometimes I like what he's singing about, but the flow is difficult to get a flow of somebody. Very difficult.
And what does your mum think about your rap music?
I think it's not real.
It's not real?
Yeah,
What would she like you to be doing?
to learn and to be a pastor.
To be a pastor? Yeah. You could be a rapper and a pastor. Hey, Mace did it. You could do it. I've just arrived at the Refugee Gala, and as you can hear, it's already started behind me. I'm here to listen to SK and some of the other artists. The UNHCR is supporting them as a way of nurturing their talent and helping them to build an independent future.
The former UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Antonio Guterres, once said that anyone who thinks refugee camps are a good idea has never lived in one. His words come to mind as I thought of Stephen having to head back to Kakuma after his performance. In Nairobi, I've witnessed the huge impact of displacement on people's lives. The truth is, you could be the next Rihanna, but if you're stuck in a refugee camp, your talent alone might not be enough.
Yeah, what we want is to make sure that any artist, anybody who would have been a well-known artist, singer, a visual artist in his or her country, has an opportunity to realize that potential, regardless of the fact that he or she finds himself in a refugee situation.
But refugees are not just victims, and for the artists among them, they're driven by a creative vision, often enriched by their past, but not defined by it.
Each and every one of us has a genius part of something. You are a driver, you are a filmmaker, anything, you have some genius part of you.
And that genius might be a particular skill or the talent to help others.
Even starting this academy was a way to showcase the refugees. They are resilient people among the refugees who have skills, who have talent, who have creativity.
Your talent is the only thing globally they'll never ask you papers for. But if you say you're a doctor, you have to prove to us. If you're a lawyer, you have to prove to us. But when you're an artist, you can work anywhere with no papers, and you can speak your language, and it's universal.
The sheer talent I've seen here is just a small window into the wasted energies currently languishing in refugee camps all across the world. The artists I've met are trying to change the narrative, to rebrand refugees not as a passive problem, but as cultural contributors who enrich us all with their creative energy.